So I'm about to start a video series dealing with GraphQL. And the problem with GraphQL is that, documentation, understanding it is just so difficult. It gets on my nerves just reading the documentation. But then once you understand how it works, it starts to get a little simple. And you ask yourself, why do they have to make things so obtuse? People have to use this. So yeah, GraphQL is necessary. I have to learn it, not only to make videos, but I have, consulting work that requires me to learn GraphQL. So I'm sharing what I know. Now, what is GraphQL? GraphQL is kind of like, imagine an API call, right? But GraphQL is a little more flexible. So say you have an API call and you're getting information about Star Wars API. What you're gonna mess with that actually. Like, we're gonna use the Star Wars API. They have the regular Star Wars API, then they have a GraphQL version, right? So we're gonna play with that data. We're gonna show you just the basics of a query. The basics, right? And then we'll get into things like fragments and aliases and stuff like that. But that's not gonna be this video. This video is the basics of GraphQL query, so that you can understand that. I'm not trying to jump too fast. And I'm gonna explain some things that are not explained in the documentation. I don't know why. The videos, tutorials, I think this is the only GraphQL query tutorial out there that doesn't suck. So you need to stay tuned and watch this video.
Okay, so now we're talking about GraphQL query basics. This is an absolute basics understanding of GraphQL. We aren't even going as far as fragments and stuff, right? Or aliases and stuff like that. Because you have to understand, see an example of a schema, right? So you can understand what you're looking at, right? In a nutshell, every GraphQL, every time you're dealing with a certain data set, there's a schema that correlates to that, right? And I guess, what you're going to use is what you're going to type is very dependent on that schema, right? It's very closely tied to that schema. So you have to know how to read that schema, navigate the schema and the documentation to get the data that you want back. And it's very different from using a JSON response. But I'm going to tell you guys, if you aren't familiar with using JSON, you should probably get familiar with using JSON, because GraphQL is kind of like the next step. Not saying that you can't understand GraphQL without JSON, but this GraphQL is going to give you like a point of reference. JSON responses are going to give you a point of reference when talking about GraphQL. There's one big problem I have with GraphQL is the lack of explanation out there. Not to toot my own horn, but I suspect that this is probably like the only YouTube video about this subject that probably doesn't absolutely suck. I'm pretty sure. I don't know for a fact, but man, it is so hard to get this information, and the documentation, the written explanations are trash. But it's not that complicated once you get through some of it. So we're just gonna go through some basic syntax, and we're going to use Swappy. I think I probably used it in another video. Star Wars API. If I haven't, welcome to it. So let's talk about GraphQL. What is GraphQL? It's a query language for APIs that allows clients to request exactly the data they need. Unlike traditional APIs that return fixed JSON responses, GraphQL enables more efficient and flexible data retrieval. Additionally, it supports real-time updates through subscriptions and making it possible to automatically reflect changes in the remote data on the client side. Now, so basically, say we're a good example of this is, say we have we need information about Star Wars from the Star Wars API, right? And maybe at some point we're minding our own business and Star Wars just drops another movie, right? Right, and they've added new characters, new planets, new starships, right, to it. Well, the Star Wars API keeps track of starships, planets, characters, life forms, things like that, right? And just say you had some type of app that dealt with that, right? Or that reflected those, different types of life forms in the Star Wars universe, or different types of starships in the Star Wars universe. Instead of pulling down all the information, basically the GraphQL request would just get back your changes, get back the changes, the new additions, not reload all of the data, right? So it's less information coming across in that API request, less loading, and it's more efficient. Hopefully that's a good example. So these are the two URLs that we're going to use. This is the JSON response API. This, of course, is going to be our GraphQL.org swappy GraphQL. Both of these are Star Wars, and they deal with the same data, but it's done differently. And when you understand GraphQL, queries are easier and shorter to write, or maybe as short, but we're gonna keep it simple. We're gonna keep it very simple. All right, we aren't getting sophisticated here, because I want you guys to get the basics, right? Again, a lot of instructionals out here, they jump to advanced stuff. You don't even understand what's going on. You don't even understand how to read the documentation. So let's jump into it. Okay, so here is my Star Wars API, right? And of course, what I'm doing, I want to give back a request that gives me back all the information about all of the starships in the in the Star Wars universe, right? So yeah, so this right here is an example, and down here it will show, below it will show a result set of all the starships, right? So I do this request, press request, and below I have this. Now, of course, there are 36 in all, and it gives me back all 36, right? Now, if I want to shorten this parameter, this is what JSON request looks like, right? So let's see, one of the first starship is a CR-90 Corvette. Yes, that is a starship from the Star Wars universe. Star Destroyer is the second one. Sentinel class landing craft is the third one. Millennium Falcon, I'm sure you're familiar with that if you're a Star Wars fan. And Y-Wing, X-Wing, and TIE Advanced, and the list goes on, right? Some of these other ones, yeah, Rebel Transport, blah, 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 right? So another thing I can do is I can just limit this to 2, right? And send a request. I just have 2 ships, right? That's it, right? The Corvettes and or I don't know what's going on. There's just one. I don't know what's going on their end, right? Let's do this. Let's make it 4. Okay. So 404 error. Yeah. Give me. So yeah. So maybe this is having some problems. So in order to save a little bit of time and understanding, I went and put this API request, did a GET request inside of Postman. If you're confused about using Postman, I have videos that cover using Postman and API calls, and I teach you how to use Postman. So yeah, here we go. So I made all these calls, and yeah, you have your C-90 Corvette, Star Destroyer, Sentinel landing craft, Death Star, Millennium Falcon, Y-Wing, X-Wing, and then you can change the number. Not found. I don't know. Oh, so I don't feel like looking in the documentation, truthfully. But, and this isn't about using the Star Wars API. You have to go look at the documentation on their website. This is really about GraphQL. So you see all the stuff that you get this now that you get when you do an API call for a JSON. Now let's go ahead and jump in the playground, the Star Wars API playground, and make do a query with GraphQL. So now we're here in our documentation, okay? And our documentation, you see all films. These are all the objects that are available to us. All films, right? Films collection, film, all people, person, all planets, planet, all species, all starships, starship. Our documentation has everything together. All vehicles, vehicle, right? And so now what we're gonna do is, just like we looked at the API call to get all starships, we'll go ahead and get all starships here right now, right? So I'm gonna do this, open, oh crap, come on, cocksucker. Okay, there we go. All starships, right? Now, we can't get all starships just by doing this, right? So we're gonna say starships, right? So let me go to all starships, starship. But another thing too is we can go in here, and this is first, after, first, before. I'll explain that to you later, okay? These are parameters you're gonna use to page through with your cursor. But and then all where's my starships, right? Okay, all starships, your starship connection, right? Total count starships. There you go. Okay, so you're gonna go into your, let me go back here. You're gonna go into your starship connection. Okay, all starships. You're gonna go into your starship connection, and you should be able to find, starships. See, and your autocomplete shows it. right? Now remember, all documentation isn't the same, but you need to have fields, okay? So let's go into your Starship connection, right? Starships, Starship, right? So you're gonna have an array of starships, and these are the attributes to your starship. So let's see, name, right? You saw that, right? This is a model, and the number of passengers it holds, okay? And this right here is our query. We get all the starships, and it shows the name, the model, and the passengers. And this is it right here, okay? And you can go to this URL, and I want you to play with this, right? And there are other ones online you can go through. You need to play with this in the playground so you can get comfortable with GraphQL, right? So your name, your model, Corvette, right? CR90 Corvette, right? Star Destroyer, right? And look, while we're at it, let's go ahead and add an ID. Aren't there? There are IDs, right? So now you have an ID for each one, right? And so there you go. Give me a second. Okay, I need to drink some water. Sorry, guys. So now we have all of our starships, right? So, and let's see. So now we have all of our starships. So you see, let's go ahead and find a Millennium Falcon, right? So just like you can pass an ID to a JSON API to make an API call, you pass an ID. We pull back all the information, right? Let me see, where is my Millennium Falcon? Right, I can't see Millennium Falcon in here. Okay, I'm really tripping, right? Millennium Falcon. I don't feel like doing Command F, right? Right, ME Millennium. Okay, forget it. Millennium. Okay, forget it. Okay, I'm gonna stick with the X-Wing fighter, right? And so I want an X-Wing fighter. Let's search for it based on ID, right? Because these are the parameters, right? So what object has an ID that we can search for based on? Obviously, what? Starship does, right? Starship has an ID. Where's ID? Right here. Okay. So all you have to do is get rid of this, right? And we can say starship, right? ID, right? This. And of course, this is a string, right? So you have to pass this as a string, right? Okay. And just so we know that we have this, let's return the name and what? What else? And model and manufacturer, right? Manufacturers. And let's run this. You know something? I personally want to find the Millennium Falcon, because I like the Millennium Falcon. There it goes right there. See? Sheesh. Okay, so let me go here. here, here. Now let's run this. Millennium Falcon, Carillion Engineer Corporation, model YT13 light freighter. Okay, that's our information about our Millennium Falcon. And so once you understand how to do this, it's actually kind of intuitive once you understand it. When it's explained to you the first time, it is not intuitive, and I don't understand why they think it is, right? I don't know, maybe it's lazy. Maybe they're lazy. They just assume that GraphQL is going to catch on. Kind of is, but it's a pain in the ass, I'm telling you. Anyway, so this is how you do a quick search on this, right? But now let's go back to the top. Go back, Starship Connection, right? And let's go back to root, right? So let's go ahead, and now I'm gonna discuss using a cursor and paging, right? So I'm gonna say, let's do all starships again. All starships, right? Starships, right? Name, model or name, starships, model, yeah. Manufacturers, right? And I'm going to say capacity or cargo capacity. Yeah, see? And again, you can go to Starship's connection, right? Starship's connection, starships, an array of starship, and everything that goes along with a starship, right? So you don't have to depend on autocomplete. And when you're not working in a playground, you don't have autocomplete, right? So you got to be able to depend on your documentation, right? Let's stay Starship class as well, right? STA, Starship class. All right, now let's go here, all starships, and we have all this information. Okay. Now, how much, now we have another problem, right? We need to find out, we can go through here and count how many starships are in there, but that's kind of tedious, right? One thing we can do is, let's go back here, root Starship Connection. Starship Connection has a property. All the connections have a property for a total count. And it'll tell you, it gives you definition, right? The total number of objects in this connection, ignoring pagination. This allows the client to fetch at least 5 objects by passing 5 as the argument to the first. Basically, just gives you a total count, okay? Forget all that. I want you guys to go ahead and get this thing working. Starship Connection, right, is an attribute. It's one of the things that will work with all starships. So it's inside of here. Just remember that, okay? Right? So not Starship Connection, I'm sorry. What? Total counts. Right? All the properties in Starship Connection are within here. And it will give you the total count, right? Which we know from looking at the Star Wars API JSON response is 36, but let's run this. What do we have? 36, okay? But I want you to remember, you gotta go look into each connection, this attribute, Starship, right? And you'll have similar things in other API documentations. You have to take this knowledge and kind of apply it to going through the documentation or looking at the schema for other for GraphQL when dealing with other data, right? So same way you look at different documentation for dealing with different APIs. Okay, your schema is your map. Okay, it allows you to write all this crap, right? And for it to work. Okay, all right. I'm hoping that makes sense, right? So now we have our total count. So now let's go ahead and we don't want all of the right, all of our ships. Let's get our first 3 ships, okay? You can do that simply like this, right? You can say all starships, right? All starships, and we create parameters, right? First 5. And that's all we have. It's 5. That's it, right? And what are they? I'm going to get rid of all this other information just so we can see clearly what they are. So we know they're 5. Right? The CR-90 Corvette, the Star Destroyer, the Sentinel class landing craft, the Death Star, and the Millennium Falcon. Okay? So now that's 5, right? Now we're going to start looking at cursors, okay? Just so you can have an idea. So in order for a cursor to work, you've got to use what they call edges. And your edges are, first of all, in your object, let's go to start. In your all starships, right? You have these properties: after, first, before, last. Okay? And in your Starship connection, you should be able to see your edges. Your edges are just an array of Starship edges, right? And it has a node and a cursor. That's a string. And this node is a Starship. So basically, in that edge, you have something else where you expose the properties of a what? Starship. Okay? You're like, well, Norman, what are you talking about? That shit don't even make sense. It'll make sense once I illustrate it to you, okay? Because, yeah, it doesn't make sense when people say things sometimes. I'm a visual learner. I think you're probably a visual learner too. So let's get down to business, all right? So I'm going to get rid of this, right? And we're going to get our first 5, but we're going to do it inside of an edge. So again, the side of our Starship connections, there's an edge, right? Edges right there. Okay. Inside of edges, we have our cursor, which is a string. No biggie. And then we have our node. But our node is useless without exposing the property of crap. I hate when I do this. Exposing the properties of what? Starship. Inside a node, you have the properties of a Starship, right? And of course, Starship has a name. We're going to keep it simple. Name, manufacturer. We're going to keep it simple, right? So let's go ahead and run this again. We should get this. Of course, it's kind of simple. It's kind of the same as what we've done already, right? And of course, this is the cursor. This is our cursor, right? Boom, 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 right? I'm going to get more into dealing with cursors, but I'm going to keep it super, super, super basic. Super basic for just for practical purposes and for you, so you get something out of this, right? Because I'm telling you, a lot of these other tutorials, you don't get nothing out of them. You stuck on square one. I know I was. I just had to go and just fucking play with this, right? So instead of doing this, we're going to say this. We're going to say 10, right? Let's get our first 10. I'm going to take manufacturer out because I want to simplify this, right? First 10, right? Corvette, Star Destroyer, Sentinel class, Death Star, Millennium Falcon, X-Wing, Y-Wing, tie advanced executor and rebel transport. That's 10, right? Now, what I do is I go ahead and let's go ahead and add something, right? First, we have our first 10, but we also implemented a cursor. So now we can iterate through this first 10, not the entire data set, right? So usually you can say first 10, last 10. Sometimes you just want to iterate through a subset. And because you have the cursor, now you can iterate through the first subset. You've already ran through the first 10 now. You already ran through the first 10, right? And so this is inside the cursor. Now, what I'm going to say is I'm going to give this cursor a name, right? First, right? And let's say not the first 10. Let's say the first 5, because we already have 10. We've already entered, right? So the first 5 before, I'm gonna call it mid, just for a name. The first 5 before a string called mid. Stop, you're killing me. Before a string called mid, right? And what this should be is CR90, Star Destroyer, Sentinel class, Death Star, and Millennium Falcon. Okay? So let's go. Again, all the way up to Millennium Falcon. See that? Now let's say the last 5 before mid. This is the test. Before mid, right? And this should say these are the last 5 before mid, right? Before mid. Arc, banking, blah, 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 V-wing, right? How do I know that? Well, let's go ahead and get rid of all of it, right? Let's just do the first 10. First 10. Get rid of mid. Actually, oh my God. Okay, so let's see. So this is the first 10, and I have to come back to the cursor part. Give me a second. Okay, well, I'm gonna save cursors. I'm gonna save cursors, and I'm gonna do cursors in the next video. But hopefully I got you guys off to a good start, and we can keep rocking and rolling, and we'll get deep with cursors and paging through data. All right, on to the next.